One question that I get asked frequently is, why don't you do motovlog videos? If you don't know what motovlogging is, it's simply putting a GoPro camera on your helmet, wiring up a microphone inside your helmet, and you talk to the audience while riding around on a motorcycle. It's really a popular genre on YouTube. In fact, some YouTubers have built huge followings simply by motovlogging. You'll find motovloggers talking about life in general, talking motorcycles, and even some that are talking motorcycle safety while they're riding around on their motorcycle and talking to the camera. I thought we'd give motovlogging a shot this week on MCrider as I ride around DFW area and talk about a very important topic to motorcyclists, distracted riding. You know, the more technology we get on motorcycles, the easier it is to get distracted. But our goal is to use our head. You know, take this gull wing, for example. Tons of buttons everywhere that could easily distract a rider, but our goal is to focus on the ride, not the distraction. We have to use our head and we have to think about what's going on around us. That's where motovlogging comes in. It can easily be a distraction when you're trying to talk to the camera, you know, and focus on what I'm saying to you guys and not focus on the road and what's going on around me. So I wrote down 4 things that could easily distract a rider, and I've got those on my cell phone. What do I do with my cell phone? I think it's in the trunk. You guys stay right there. I'm gonna get it out of the trunk. I'll be right back. Let's see. Oh, my Hot Pocket's ready. Cool. All right, so I've got my notes here. We'll talk about the 4 things that could... Whoa! Did you guys see that? That guy just about pulled out in front of me. He must be a distracted driver. I bet he was texting or something. Let's head back to the shop. We'll talk about it further there, and I'll give you my 4 things that could distract a rider. All right, well, this is better. At least sitting here talking to you, I don't have to worry about those crazy distracted drivers out there. Man, distracted driving is a real problem these days for cars and, as we've seen, for motorcyclists. You know, there's a ton of things that can become distracting for us as riders, and here are some of the main culprits, in my opinion. Cell phone use. As riders, we like to complain a lot about distracted drivers, and then we get on a motorcycle with the Bluetooth device and we start talking on the phone. We'll look at some science behind multitasking in a minute, but let's just say for now that the brain's not very good at doing 2 things at once. Brief instructions or something like talking to your digital assistant like Siri through a Bluetooth to get directions or to complete a task when time and traffic allows is one thing, but to carry on a detailed 30-minute phone conversation while riding on a motorcycle is another. Another area that's similar to cell phone use is just gadget use in general. Like I mentioned earlier, there are more and more gadgets on a motorcycle these days. A lot of stuff makes riding a motorcycle more enjoyable when used correctly, but it's a real problem if we use it while the motorcycle's in motion, and especially if we allow it to distract us from our primary task at hand, and that's staying upright. Now, I frequently listen to music while I ride. The right type of music helps me keep my mind engaged. It especially helps on longer rides. Without music on a long ride, I tend to lose some mental sharpness, and I get sucked into the sound of the wind, and the engine kind of lulls me into just a state of being where my mind's not real active. But before I take off on a ride, I get the playlist that I want, and I get it going in the background, and everything's set up before I put the bike in gear. So there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, with using the gadgets on a motorcycle. They just have to be used wisely and not while the motorcycle's rolling down the road. You know, another one that we don't talk about a whole lot, doesn't get a whole lot of focus, is emotional distraction. You know, emotional distraction on a motorcycle can be a real issue. If you commute to work and you've had a really bad day at the office, you need to switch that off before you put the motorcycle in gear and before you head out on the road. It's too easy to get on a motorcycle and be distracted by that conversation that happened in a meeting a few hours before. Some things that'll go through your mind is, I should have said this, or I wonder why they said that, and all the internal conversations that can happen when we're emotionally distracted. So let's look at some research that's gone into the brain and multitasking and see how that relates to riding a motorcycle. So here's some quotes from a study performed by the U.S. National Library of Medicine on the human brain and multitasking. So this is what we're asking our brain to do while we're riding and trying to focus on anything else at the same time. They said in this study, the scientific study of multitasking over the past few decades has revealed some important principles about the operations and processing limitations of our minds and brains. One critical finding to emerge is that we inflate our perceived ability to multitask. There's little correlation with our actual ability. In fact, multitasking is almost always a misnomer, as the human mind and brain lack the architecture to perform two or more tasks simultaneously. So that's a direct quote from that study. In order to perform any single task or any task at all, we have three regions of the brain at work: the frontoparietal control, the dorsal attention network, or the DAN, and the ventral attention network, or the VAN. So as it relates to riding a motorcycle, that frontoparietal control handles all the top-down aspects of riding a motorcycle. Things like squeezing in the clutch or shifting up or down the gears or adjusting your lane position. All of the direct aspects of riding a motorcycle are controlled by that region of the brain. The DAN works behind the scenes, and it feeds information to the frontoparietal control by selecting the information that's relevant to the task, such as it will recognize a stop sign ahead and tell us to prepare for the stop, or that a car may pull into our lane and give us options on what we should do about it. The VAN, which is the other region of our brain at work, is working, and it selects the stimulus that's relevant to the task at hand and what's not. So we don't realize it, but a whole lot of information is coming into our brains while we ride. The fact that we just rode past a cypress tree is probably not relevant to our ride. The VAN portion of our brain weeds that information out so it doesn't take up brain cycles. But the fact that the low fuel indicator just came on is relevant to us riding the motorcycle. So the VAN passes that information up the mental stream so that we can use that information to complete the task at hand. So these three systems work very well to help us complete a single task, riding a motorcycle. But they're really bad at attempting to multitask. The input from the VAN and the DAN send mixed signals to the frontoparietal control when we try to multitask. Sometimes they're sending signals related to riding the motorcycle. Sometimes they're sending signals related to whatever our distraction is. In fact, here's some more quotes from that study. It says, psychological science and neuroscience indicate that our minds are taxed by multitasking. And they said multitasking is not free. We pay a price in increased demands on these systems, and the performance deficit occurs. So this brings us back to our original question, why don't I motovlog while doing instructional videos? If I try to ride a motorcycle and talk to the camera at the same time while thinking about what I wanted to say to you, while making sure the camera is on and recording, while making sure the camera's angle is right, while dreaming about all the views and the fame and the fortune that this video is going to bring me on YouTube, I'm doing a disservice to you as a viewer, to myself as a rider, and certainly not doing a service to my family who would like me to get back home at the end of the day. In fact, this research shows that the brain cannot multitask. It simply switches from one task to the other and makes our performance in both of those tasks worse as a result. Not only would my communication for on-road skills and road strategies be worse, but my riding would suffer also, increasing my risk and setting a poor example for everyone who's watching this video. So that's why I don't motovlog. Now you can stop asking me why, but you probably won't. I'll just point you to this video in the future. Ride safe this week, ride distraction free, and until next week, this is Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road. I don't know why I didn't think of this before. I could be uploading videos to MCrider while I'm out for a nice leisurely ride. Why didn't I think of this before? 2 birds, 1 stone. Who would have thought it?